In this presentation, we will learn what is a quantitative research, or we'll review quantitative research, and we'll learn the first steps in quantitative data analysis, which is preparing your data for analysis. So remember that a quantitative research question is a question that asks about the relationship between two or more variables. I'm going to present two findings of research that we have come across already, and I'd like you to determine what's the independent variable and the dependent variable in both of these findings. So you'll remember these studies from past chapters. Dr. Bro's study on athletic participation in high school grades or academic achievement, and the experiment where they examined whether or not the severity of the crime had an effect on prosecutorial misconduct. So pause the presentation while you look for the independent and the dependent variable in both of these findings. Let's look at the first one. The independent variable here is whether or not an individual participates in sports athletic participation. And Dr. Bro found that this had a statistical impact on academic achievement on high school grades. The second one is a bit more tricky. So the independent variable here is the severity of crime. So whether it was a murder condition or assault. The dependent variable is the likelihood of prosecutorial misconduct. So whether or not participants received the murder condition or the assault condition had an effect on how many questions they withheld. So this was a reminder of quantitative research questions and the independent and dependent variable, which are very important for quantitative analysis. So to answer your quantitative research question, you collect your data, such as experiments or surveys. And then your quantitative analysis means transforming this raw data, the information you received from your questionnaire, for example, into statistics to examine or to answer your hypothesis. So does variable A have an effect on variable B? Does sports participation have an effect on academic achievement? So this means transforming that data into numbers. Once we have those numbers, we can use statistics. A statistic is a summary statement about a set of data, and statistics is a discipline that provides techniques for organizing and analyzing data. So you've come across statistics in your statistics class. So there are two types of statistics, as you'll remember. One is descriptive, and this type of statistics organizes and summarizes data. This is what we'll be using mostly for this class. A second type of statistics is inferential. Inferential statistics estimate population characteristics and test hypotheses. Inferential statistics seeks to explain something to us. So this is the main purpose of quantitative analysis, because we want to be able to make generalizations from the sample to the population. In order to have inferential statistics, we must have data that are based on random processes, such as random sampling or random assignment. Before starting the analysis, there are a number of steps involved to prepare the data. First, researchers need to code the data, which means transforming data into numbers. Then we edit to check for errors and inconsistencies. We enter the data into a data file. This is also called a data matrix, where each row represents a case. So for your questionnaire, each person that that completed the questionnaire, they're a case. And the columns are for each of the variables, or each of the questions that you asked your individuals. Lastly, researchers clean the data file to detect and resolve any errors in it. So you'll be conducting these steps with your surveys. So let's look at an example. Here's an example of a data matrix. You create a table, which can be done using MS Word or Excel, and you enter the information from your surveys into this table. So each row represents a case, R1001, R1002, and so on. For this survey, each case is an individual who responded to the questionnaire. Remember that you do not include names in your data matrix. Rather, you assign a unique case number. You want to make sure that the questionnaire remains anonymous. The columns are the variables, which represent the question items that were asked on the survey, such as what is your sex, how tall are you, your marital status, and so on. So the number of rows and columns depends on the number of respondents and questions in your survey. The purpose of the data matrix is to organize your data to help with the analysis. With this information, we can easily calculate the average income of our respondents or how many of them are married. In this data matrix, most of the data has been transformed into numbers or coded. While you don't need to transform ratio levels of measurement, such as height or income, you do need to code nominal and ordinal responses. So remember that nominal and ordinal levels of measurements are those responses that are placed into categories, such as religion, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, and so on. Can you find which of these data have been coded? So which ones were likely asked has nominal or ordinal levels of measurements and had to be coded into numbers? Pause the presentation while you find them. The variables that were likely coded were race and marital status. It's unlikely that the respondent told the interviewer that their marital status was 1. Rather, 1 represents married, 2 single, and so on. Liberalness is likely a compound of variables, but we'll ignore that for now. And years of education might have been coded, but we can't tell with the information provided here. Did you happen to see which one of these are ratio variables? Income and height are the ratio variables, which means that they do not need to be coded since they were already numbers. Before we start analysis, we want to ensure that the data has been entered correctly and that it's ready for statistical analysis. So we check for errors. Looking at this data matrix, is it complete? Is there an error? Have all data been coded correctly? Pause the presentation while you look for this. So in this data matrix, there is an error. As you can see, sex hasn't been coded yet. You would need to transform all responses with M, which likely stands for male, into 1, and all responses with an F into 2 for female. Then you'll be ready for analysis. In your own research, using your questionnaires, you'll be creating a data matrix as well. You'll create a table using Word or Excel. You'll code the data so that they're represented by numbers and enter this into the data file. You should also always check for inconsistencies. This is the end of the presentation.